The sun cast a warm glow over Portland, illuminating the bustling Saturday market. I wandered through the stalls, the vibrant colors of handmade crafts and the aroma of freshly baked goods swirling around me like a comforting embrace. Yet, amidst the lively chatter and laughter, I felt an unsettling emptiness gnawing at my insides. My life had become a series of monotonous routines: wake up, prepare breakfast for my husband, clean the house, and repeat. The thrill of spontaneity had long since faded. As I sipped my lukewarm coffee from a paper cup, I couldn't help but think about how long it had been since I felt truly alive. My marriage to David had settled into a predictable rhythm that left little room for excitement or passion. He was a good man, devoted and reliable, but somewhere along the way, we lost ourselves in our responsibilities. The spark that once ignited our love seemed extinguished, leaving only ashes behind. I glanced around at couples enjoying their time together, sharing laughter over donuts from Voodoo or strolling hand in hand beneath the trees of Washington Park. A pang of longing pierced my heart as I watched them. What would it be like to feel that kind of connection again? To share secrets and dreams with someone who truly understood me? Just as I was about to turn away from the market stalls, my gaze landed on a familiar figure across the way, my neighbor, Jake. He stood by a food truck, his golden retriever at his feet. Our eyes met briefly before he smiled and waved. It was a simple gesture but enough to stir something within me, a flicker of interest that had been absent for far too long. "Hey there," he called out as I approached. "Hi," I replied, forcing a smile despite the fluttering in my chest. Jake was younger than me by nearly 10 years, with an easy charm that drew people in effortlessly. We'd exchanged pleasantries over garden fences and casual encounters but never delved deeper than surface-level conversations. Today felt different somehow. There was an unspoken tension hanging between us. "I'm just grabbing some lunch for Charlie," he said, gesturing to his dog who wagged his tail eagerly. "That's great," I replied absently as my thoughts wandered back to my own lunch plans, or lack thereof. "Want to join us?" Charlie could use some company, Jake offered with an inviting grin. I hesitated for a moment. Guilt washed over me at the thought of abandoning my responsibilities at home. But then again, what did I have waiting for me? A quiet house and an empty afternoon stretched out before me like an unending road. "Sure," I found myself saying before fully processing it. We settled on a bench under the shade of a large oak tree while Charlie happily munched on treats from Jake's hand. As we talked about everything and nothing, our favorite local spots and upcoming events, I felt walls beginning to crumble around my heart. Laughter bubbled up between us effortlessly. It was refreshing to connect with someone who didn't carry the weight of shared history or expectations. But just as quickly as warmth enveloped me, doubt crept back in. What would David think if he knew? Would he even care? A familiar ache reminded me of all those times I had tried to reach out to him only to be met with indifference or distraction from work. "I should get going soon," I said reluctantly as our conversation began to drift toward silence. Jake's expression shifted slightly. There was something more profound behind his gaze now, a curiosity mixed with concern that made my heart race unexpectedly. "You don't have to rush off if you don't want to." His words hung in the air between us like an invitation, a chance to break free from routine if only for a moment longer. But reality tugged insistently at my conscience. This wasn't just about me anymore. "I really should." The words felt hollow against the backdrop of what could be, a fleeting moment where possibility danced tantalizingly close yet remained just out of reach. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me back into reality with startling force. Fumbling for it amid anxious thoughts about David's potential reaction if he saw Jake's number on my screen sent adrenaline coursing through me. It was David. "Can we talk later? There's something important I want to share." My stomach dropped as confusion swirled within me like storm clouds gathering overhead. What could possibly be so urgent? My heart raced not only from uncertainty but also from guilt. the nagging reminder that while I entertained thoughts about what lay beyond these moments with Jake, another life awaited back home filled with obligations and promises made long ago. I glanced up at Jake, who watched me intently, his expression unreadable yet filled with something akin to understanding or perhaps hope. "I have to go," I said abruptly as fear gripped me tightly once more. "Okay," he replied softly but didn't move away immediately. Instead he held my gaze longer than necessary, a shared moment suspended in time where desire lingered heavily between us yet remained unspoken. As I walked away from him and back toward the market exit, each step felt heavier than the last, a pull toward both familiarity and uncertainty that left me questioning everything about what lay ahead. The next morning, I woke up with a knot in my stomach. The sun streamed through the window, casting warm light across my bedroom. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying the previous day's events in my mind. The moment with my neighbor lingered, a sweet yet troubling memory. I had offered to help him with his dog, thinking it would be an innocent way to get to know him better. But now, guilt seeped into my thoughts like a slow leak. As I sipped coffee on the porch, the familiar sounds of Portland filled the air, the distant hum of traffic mixed with laughter from children playing nearby. My heart raced as I thought about meeting my neighbor later that day. Would it feel different? Would he expect more from me now that we'd crossed an invisible line? I decided to focus on the task at hand and pushed those thoughts aside. Helping him with his dog felt like a simple act of kindness, but I knew it was much more than that for me. The connection we shared deepened each time we met. It was both exhilarating and terrifying. Later in the afternoon, I made my way over to his house. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the street as I approached his front porch. He greeted me with a warm smile that sent butterflies fluttering in my stomach. "Hey there. Ready for some dog walking?" he asked cheerfully. "Absolutely," I replied, trying to sound casual despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. We set off down the tree-lined streets of our neighborhood with his golden retriever bounding ahead of us. We chatted easily about mundane things, local events and favorite parks, yet beneath our light conversation lay an undercurrent of tension that neither of us acknowledged directly. As we walked, he shared stories about how he had adopted his dog during a difficult time in his life. His vulnerability drew me in further. I found myself wanting to comfort him and share my own struggles too. "I can relate," I said softly when he talked about feeling lost after moving to Portland alone. "Sometimes it feels like we're all just searching for something," he mused thoughtfully as we paused at a small park. His words resonated deeply within me. They echoed my own feelings of discontentment and longing for something real, something more than what my marriage had become. Suddenly, an unexpected wave of emotion washed over me as he looked into my eyes. It was as if time stood still again, everything else faded away until it was just us standing there under the trees with our breaths mingling in the cool afternoon air. And then it happened, we kissed. It was gentle at first, tentative even, but then deepened into something more passionate as our fears melted away momentarily. It felt like freedom and danger all at once, a collision of desires that left us both breathless when we finally pulled away. "What have we done?" I whispered, feeling a rush of panic alongside exhilaration. "I don't know," he admitted softly, running a hand through his hair as if trying to gather himself back into reality. "But it felt right." Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a jarring reminder of my other life waiting just beyond this momentary escape. With trembling hands, I pulled it out and saw a text from Mark. "Can we talk? I still love you." My heart sank as confusion clouded my mind. How could this be happening? Just moments ago, everything felt so clear, the connection between us had ignited something long buried within me, but now those feelings clashed violently against the reality of my marriage. "I have to go," I said abruptly without thinking further about what this meant for us or what might happen next. "Is everything okay?" he asked with concern etched across his face. Yeah, just family stuff, I stammered awkwardly before turning away from him and heading back towards home. Each step felt heavy with regret and uncertainty as thoughts swirled chaotically inside me. What did Mark mean by that message? Did he sense something was wrong? Could he ever understand how trapped I felt? When I arrived home, silence greeted me like an unwelcome guest. Mark wasn't home yet. Perhaps he was still working late or out running errands. Either way gave me time to collect myself before facing whatever conversation awaited us later. I busied myself preparing dinner but found little joy in chopping vegetables or stirring sauces. Instead, anxiety twisted knots tighter in my stomach while memories flashed through my mind, the kiss lingering longer than any other thought could hold its ground against it. Finally hearing footsteps approaching brought relief mixed with dread. I knew this moment would change everything between us if not handled delicately enough. Mark entered looking slightly disheveled but hopeful nonetheless. His eyes searched mine for answers even before words were exchanged between us. Amanda, he began slowly after taking off his jacket and hanging it up neatly by the door, a habit of his that always struck me as oddly endearing despite everything else weighing heavily upon our relationship lately. I've been thinking. I braced myself for whatever confession would come next while keeping silent. Letting him find his footing first seemed wise considering how raw emotions still ran following recent events outside these walls where life continued unabated beyond them both. But then came another twist, a familiar tension rising again when Mark looked straight at me before continuing. I want us to go away together this weekend. The words hung between us like a fragile thread ready to snap at any moment under pressure from unspoken truths swirling around them both. Could anything truly mend what had frayed so badly over time? Or would this trip only serve to complicate matters further? Caught between two worlds, the desire for change and loyalty toward familiarity, I stood frozen before him grappling once more with choices made earlier today. Choices that could unravel everything if not handled carefully enough, moving forward into uncertain territory ahead where nothing remained certain anymore regardless how hard either one might try holding on tight against inevitable shifts looming just beyond reach. The tension in the air was palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. I could see the concern etched on his face, mirroring my own turmoil. Amanda, he said softly, breaking the silence that had wrapped around us. What are we doing? His question hung there, demanding an answer I wasn't sure I had. The kiss we shared earlier felt like a distant memory now, overshadowed by the weight of reality pressing down on us. I searched his eyes for reassurance but found only uncertainty reflected back. I don't know, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. The honesty of that statement stung more than I anticipated. Everything feels so complicated. Complicated? He echoed, frustration creeping into his tone. You're married, Amanda. You can't just throw everything away because you're feeling restless. A wave of guilt washed over me at his words. He was right, I was teetering on the edge of something reckless and exhilarating yet terrifyingly uncertain. My life felt like a carefully balanced stack of cards, and with each passing moment, it threatened to topple. I'm not trying to throw anything away, I countered defensively. I want to feel alive again. He stepped closer, closing the distance between us as he reached for my hand. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver through me, igniting a flicker of passion that battled against the guilt gnawing at my insides. I want that too, he murmured, his eyes searching mine for clarity. But what about your husband? What if he finds out? The thought sent a chill down my spine. My husband. The very person whose love message still lingered in my mind like an unwanted ghost haunting our home. I can't think about him right now, I replied sharply, pulling my hand away as if burned by the very idea. Maybe you should, he insisted gently but firmly. Just then, the sound of a door creaking open jolted me from our heated exchange. My heart raced as I instinctively stepped back, glancing toward the entrance of his apartment where a figure appeared in the dim light. Amanda? It was my husband's voice, deep and familiar yet foreign in this moment. Panic surged through me as I turned to face him fully, caught off guard and utterly unprepared for this confrontation. "What are you doing here?" I stammered, desperately trying to mask my shock. "I came home early," he said simply, taking in the scene before him, the two of us standing too close together in an intimate space that suddenly felt suffocating. The realization hit me hard. How would he interpret this? Would he sense the unresolved tension? Would he see through the facade? We were just, my voice faltered as I struggled for words that could explain away this precarious situation without revealing too much. "We were just talking about dogs," my neighbor interjected quickly, but it sounded weak even as it left his lips. My husband's brow furrowed slightly at our awkwardness but didn't betray any deeper suspicion beyond mild confusion. Still standing at the threshold with arms crossed over his chest, he shifted his gaze between us before settling on me. "Talking about dogs?" he repeated slowly as if testing each word like they were foreign objects in his mouth. "Yes." I jumped in too quickly. "You know how much we both love dogs." He nodded slowly but didn't seem convinced by our flimsy excuse. There was an edge to his expression that hinted at deeper feelings simmering beneath the surface, feelings that had been neglected for far too long. "Right," he said finally after what felt like an eternity stretched out between us all in silence, an uncomfortable pause filled with unsaid words and unacknowledged truths hanging heavily in the air around us. I could feel heat rising to my cheeks under scrutiny. Guilt clawed at me from within while desire tugged insistently at my heartstrings from without, a maddening dichotomy leaving me breathless and confused. "Amanda," he continued after another prolonged silence filled only by distant sounds from outside, a dog barking somewhere down the street, "can we talk? Just you and me?" My stomach twisted painfully at those words. Part of me wanted nothing more than to escape this moment, to flee from both men who pulled me in such different directions, but another part yearned for clarity amidst chaos. Perhaps this conversation would lead somewhere meaningful rather than spiraling into uncertainty once again. "Of course," I managed to say despite feeling trapped between two worlds, the warmth radiating from one man while being tethered tightly by loyalty to another who had known me longer than anyone else ever could. As we stepped outside into the cool evening air together, leaving behind whatever unresolved emotions lingered inside, I glanced back one last time toward my neighbor who stood watching quietly from within his apartment doorway, a silent witness caught between two lives unfolding before him. And there it was again, that flicker of longing ignited anew even as uncertainty loomed large ahead. What awaited me on this path taken tonight remained shrouded in mystery and doubt, but one thing felt certain. Choices made would ripple outward beyond comprehension into futures unseen. As dawn broke, the light filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a soft glow across the room. I lay there, tangled in the sheets, still grappling with the weight of my choices. The events of last night played on repeat in my mind. We spent the night together, but what did that truly mean? The sound of my phone vibrating on the bedside table jolted me from my thoughts. I reached for it, heart racing as I saw my husband's name flash across the screen. The message read, "Can we talk? I miss you." My stomach twisted at his words. How could he still love me after everything? I glanced over at my neighbor, still asleep beside me. His chest rose and fell steadily, a peaceful contrast to the turmoil swirling within me. Would he understand if I chose to return to my husband? Could I even bear to leave this moment behind? After a few moments of deliberation, I decided to slip out of bed quietly. I needed air, space to think without feeling trapped by conflicting desires. As I tiptoed into the kitchen, memories flooded back, our last family dinner together when laughter filled our home and warmth wrapped around us like a comforting blanket. I poured myself a cup of coffee and leaned against the counter, staring out at the morning light filtering through the window. The familiar sight of Portland came alive outside, people bustling about their morning routines, shops opening for business. It felt like another world entirely compared to what had unfolded in this apartment. "Hey," came a sleepy voice from behind me. My neighbor appeared in the doorway, rubbing his eyes and looking disheveled yet undeniably charming in his casual state. "Good morning," I replied softly, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. He stepped closer, concern etched on his face as he studied me. "You okay?" I hesitated before answering. How could I explain the storm brewing inside? "Just thinking." "About what?" He leaned against the counter next to me, his presence both comforting and confusing. "My husband," I admitted reluctantly. "He texted me." His expression shifted slightly, a flicker of disappointment crossed his features before he masked it with neutrality. "What did he say?" "He wants to talk," I said quietly. He nodded slowly, processing my words as if weighing each one carefully against his own feelings. "You should talk to him." "I know." My voice was barely above a whisper as I grappled with how much honesty was appropriate between us now. "Do you want to?" His question hung heavy in the air. "I don't know," I confessed, feeling vulnerable under his gaze. "Everything feels so complicated." Before he could respond, my phone buzzed again, another message from my husband urging urgency in his tone, "Please come home." The weight of those words pressed down on me like a leaden cloak. How could he still want me after everything? And yet here was this man beside me, who had ignited feelings long buried beneath years of routine and obligation. "I need time," I said finally. He nodded again but didn't speak. Instead, he reached out and took my hand gently in his, a simple gesture that sent electricity coursing through me despite everything else swirling around us. "Let's go for a walk," he suggested after a moment's silence. I hesitated but eventually agreed. Perhaps some fresh air would clear my mind even just a little bit. We slipped on jackets and stepped outside into Portland's crisp morning air, the sun shining brightly overhead as we walked side by side through familiar streets filled with life awakening around us. The Saturday market was beginning to buzz with activity as vendors set up their stalls filled with colorful produce and handmade crafts, an explosion of sights and sounds that usually brought joy but now felt overwhelming amidst my inner chaos. "What do you love most about this place?" he asked suddenly as we paused near an artist painting vibrant landscapes on canvas nearby. I considered for a moment before answering honestly, "The sense of community, the way people come together here." He smiled softly at that before glancing away toward another stall showcasing handmade jewelry glittering under sunlight, a reminder that beauty existed even amid uncertainty. "You know," he began cautiously after taking a deep breath, "whatever happens between us, it doesn't have to define you." My heart raced at his words. His understanding felt like both an invitation and an ultimatum all at once, a reminder that choices lay ahead waiting for resolution while still holding on to something precious right now. We continued walking until we reached Washington Park, a tranquil refuge filled with lush greenery where paths wound through trees whispering secrets only nature understood. Sitting on one of its benches surrounded by blooming flowers felt calming, yet beneath that calmness lay an undercurrent of tension threatening to surface once more. "I really care about you," he said suddenly breaking through silence like thunder rolling across distant hills, a confession hanging heavy between us waiting for acknowledgement or rejection depending on how things unfolded next. "And what about him?" The question slipped out before I could stop myself, my loyalty battling against desire as emotions warred within me once more threatening clarity just beyond grasp. "He loves you too," he replied simply but firmly meeting my gaze unwaveringly. Those piercing eyes held both compassion and longing, a mirror reflecting back everything we'd shared thus far while hinting at depths yet unexplored if only given permission. But then came another vibration from my phone pulling me back into reality. The screen revealed yet another message from my husband echoing previous sentiments, "I can't wait forever." My breath hitched painfully in response. Choices loomed ahead like dark clouds threatening rain without warning, Would this be an opportunity or simply another crossroads leading nowhere? As we sat there enveloped by nature's embrace watching leaves dance gently overhead, I felt torn between two worlds, each beckoning with promises unfulfilled yet filled with potential waiting just beyond reach. The air in the cafe was thick with the rich aroma of coffee, mingling with the sweet scent of pastries. I sat at a small table by the window, staring blankly at the vibrant Portland street outside. The Saturday market buzzed with life, but my mind was elsewhere, tangled in a web of conflicting emotions. My phone vibrated on the table, breaking my reverie. It was a message from my husband, "I still love you." My heart sank as I read those words again. Across town, my neighbor was likely walking his dog or tending to his garden, unaware of the storm brewing inside me. The kiss we shared felt like a lifetime ago, yet its warmth lingered like a ghost haunting my thoughts. I toyed with the idea of texting him back, maybe suggesting we meet later, but guilt gnawed at me like an insatiable hunger. As I sipped my coffee, an old acquaintance walked in. Sarah had been my friend in college, but we lost touch over the years. She spotted me and waved enthusiastically before making her way over. "Amanda. Long time no see," she exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with surprise. "Hi, Sarah." "It's been ages," I replied, forcing a smile despite the turmoil within. We exchanged pleasantries and caught up on each other's lives. But then Sarah's expression shifted slightly. She leaned in closer and lowered her voice. "I heard some rumors about you," she said cautiously. "Is it true you're seeing someone?" My heart raced as I processed her words. How could she know? Panic surged through me as I searched for an appropriate response. "It's complicated," I managed to say, avoiding eye contact. "Complicated? Or exciting?" she teased lightly but then turned serious again. "You deserve happiness, Amanda." Her words struck a chord deep within me. Did I deserve happiness? Or was I merely chasing shadows? The guilt from my affair clashed violently against my longing for something real, something that felt alive. "Have you thought about what you want?" she asked gently. I hesitated before answering, feeling exposed under her gaze. "I'm just trying to figure things out," I finally admitted. Sarah nodded knowingly but didn't press further. Instead, we chatted about mundane topics until our conversation drifted back to relationships. She shared stories of her own struggles and triumphs in love, each tale resonating with me more than I wanted to admit. As we parted ways, Sarah's last words echoed in my mind, "Don't forget to choose yourself." I walked out into the bustling streets of Portland feeling disoriented yet strangely invigorated by our conversation. The sun cast warm rays on my skin as I strolled through the market stalls filled with handmade crafts and local delicacies. Each vibrant color seemed to pulse with life, a stark contrast to the gray clouds looming over my heart. Suddenly, I spotted him, the neighbor who had become so much more than just a friendly face next door. He stood by a food stall, laughing with friends while his dog wagged its tail excitedly at his feet. Something inside me stirred at the sight of him. A mixture of desire and fear washed over me as memories flooded back, the laughter we shared during our late-night talks and that stolen kiss that ignited everything. I hesitated for a moment before deciding to approach him. Perhaps it was time to confront this feeling head-on instead of hiding behind texts and half-hearted excuses. "Hey!" I called out as I neared him. He turned around and smiled warmly when he saw me, a smile that made my heart flutter against all reason. "Amanda. Good to see you," he replied cheerfully as he stepped away from his friends who had started teasing him about something amusing. "I thought I'd find you here," I said casually even though my pulse quickened at being so close to him again. "Care for some donuts?" He gestured toward Voodoo Donut across the street, a place known for its quirky treats and lively atmosphere. "Sure," I answered without thinking twice. It felt good to be spontaneous for once instead of weighing every decision against potential consequences. As we walked together toward the shop, laughter bubbled between us effortlessly, his presence igniting something inside me that had long been dormant. But just as quickly as that spark ignited, doubt crept back in. How could this be right when everything else felt so wrong? We reached Voodoo Doughnut and ordered our treats. He picked something colorful while I opted for an old favorite covered in sprinkles. We found a spot outside on one of their benches where people bustled around us enjoying their day amid laughter and chatter filling the air like music notes dancing freely under blue skies above us. "So, what do you think?" he asked playfully after taking a big bite out of his donut while crumbs scattered across his shirt, a sight that made me chuckle despite myself. "It's definitely indulgent," I replied teasingly before taking a bite myself. Sweetness exploded on my tongue, reminding me how much joy simple pleasures could bring amidst chaos swirling around us, both silently unacknowledged beneath our playful banter. But then reality crashed down like thunder rolling overhead when suddenly thoughts drifted back toward home, the husband waiting there patiently wanting answers, while here was this man who ignited flames within me that felt impossible to extinguish now. "Hey," he said softly after finishing another mouthful while wiping away crumbs from his lips with laughter still dancing in those brown eyes of his. Eyes that seemed so full of promise yet shadowed by uncertainty lingering between us both, now too heavy yet too light all at once somehow. "What's going on?" he continued, sensing hesitation creeping into our moment together as silence stretched uncomfortably between us, now thickening like fog rolling through streets ahead, obscuring clarity once again. "I don't know." My voice trailed off uncertainly, realizing how vulnerable this moment made me feel, exposed naked against swirling emotions, threatening vulnerability overwhelming every rational thought, left standing tall only moments ago. Just then another message pinged through on my phone, vibrating insistently against wood beneath where it lay resting quietly unnoticed until now. It was from Mark again, the husband wanting desperately another chance, perhaps inviting me away for a weekend getaway somewhere far away from all this confusion, clouding judgment, threatening choices looming ahead like dark clouds readying themselves for rain without warning. And there it was, a crossroads laid bare before me, demanding decisions made swiftly or risk losing everything altogether, including perhaps even myself along way too. The weight of Mark's message pressed heavily on my mind. "I still love you." Those words echoed in the hollow chambers of my heart, mingling with the warmth I felt for my neighbor, Jason. Standing at the airport, surrounded by travelers eager for their adventures, I felt like an outsider in my own life. The vibrant atmosphere buzzed around me, yet I was caught in a storm of conflicting emotions. I glanced at my phone again, half expecting another message from Mark. Nothing. Just silence, which was as deafening as the noise around me. My thoughts drifted back to Jason and our shared moments, walking his dog through Washington Park, laughing over coffee at Voodoo Doughnut, and those stolen glances that ignited something deep within me. Each encounter had drawn me closer to him while simultaneously pushing me further away from the life I once knew. The weekend getaway with Mark loomed ahead like a beacon of hope and dread. Could I face him? Would it be a chance to rekindle what we had, or merely a reminder of all that was lost? My heart raced as I recalled our last conversation. His vulnerability had surprised me. He spoke about his fears and insecurities with an openness I hadn't seen in years. A sudden movement caught my eye, a familiar figure weaving through the crowd. It was Jason, his dog trotting happily beside him. He looked up and our eyes met for just a moment before he broke into a smile that lit up his face. My heart fluttered at the sight of him, but guilt quickly followed like a shadow. "Hey there," he called out as he approached. "You heading somewhere exciting?" "Just trying to sort things out," I replied carefully, unsure how much to reveal. He nodded knowingly, his expression softening as he leaned against a nearby pillar. "You okay? You look a bit overwhelmed." "Yeah, just life decisions," I said vaguely. "Mark wants us to go away this weekend." Jason's brow furrowed slightly at the mention of my husband's name. "That sounds important." "It is," I admitted reluctantly. "But it's complicated." He studied me for a moment before speaking again. If you ever need someone to talk to, his voice trailed off, leaving an invitation hanging in the air between us. I appreciate that, I said softly, but felt the weight of my choices pressing down on me again. As we stood there in that crowded airport terminal, surrounded by strangers embarking on their journeys, another wave of realization washed over me. Mark wasn't the only one hiding something from me. Jason had his own secrets too. Do you ever feel stuck? Jason asked suddenly, pulling me from my thoughts. Stuck? The word hung in the air like an uninvited guest. Like you're standing at a crossroads and don't know which path to take? He leaned closer as if sharing something intimate. Yes, I confessed, feeling vulnerable under his gaze. I get it, he said quietly. Sometimes it feels easier to stay where you are than risk everything for something unknown. His words resonated deeply within me. Wasn't that exactly what I was doing? Clinging to familiarity while yearning for change? The thought made my chest ache with longing and fear simultaneously. Just then, my phone buzzed again, another text from Mark, please don't shut me out. The plea tugged at my conscience even more forcefully than before. I should go, I said reluctantly, torn between two worlds, the one with Mark that promised stability and comfort and the one with Jason that ignited passion and excitement but also uncertainty. Are you sure? Jason asked softly as if sensing my internal struggle. Yes. My voice wavered slightly as I took a step back from him but felt tethered by invisible strings binding us together. As I turned to leave, Jason called after me softly, whatever you choose, make sure it's what you truly want. Those words lingered long after I'd walked away. They echoed in the depths of my mind while driving home through Portland's familiar streets. The colorful stalls of Saturday market bustling with life contrasted sharply against my internal turmoil. Later that evening, sitting across from Mark at our dining table, a place filled with memories both joyful and painful, I couldn't shake off what Jason had said or how easily he understood what lay beneath my surface thoughts. Mark cleared his throat before speaking up hesitantly, I've been thinking about us, about how we can reconnect. His earnest expression stirred something within me, a flicker of hope mingled with doubt clouding clarity like fog rolling over Portland's bridges on a chilly morning. I want that too, I replied cautiously but knew deep down there were layers yet unaddressed, layers intertwined with another man who brought forth feelings long buried beneath routine monotony. What do you think would help? Mark asked earnestly as if searching for answers buried deep within both our hearts. He wanted us back but didn't realize how far apart we'd grown amidst years spent navigating life together without truly seeing one another anymore. I don't know, I admitted honestly while recalling moments spent laughing over donuts or walking dogs under trees swaying gently overhead, a stark contrast against this table filled only with silence now punctuated by unanswered questions lingering between us like ghosts haunting old memories left unexamined for far too long. The tension hung thickly around us until finally breaking when Mark reached across the table grasping my hand firmly, his warmth grounding yet unsettling all at once. It reminded me too much of comfort found while still yearning for something more exhilarating beyond these familiar confines. In that moment though, the gravity behind each choice weighed heavily upon both our hearts. I couldn't help but wonder whether this would be enough or merely another step leading toward inevitable heartbreak waiting somewhere down this twisted road ahead. Later that night, lying awake staring blankly at ceiling shadows dancing above, I found myself replaying every moment shared between two worlds colliding into one chaotic existence filled with desires unfulfilled yet tantalizingly close enough to touch. Tomorrow would bring clarity, or perhaps more confusion, but tonight all choices lay suspended like stars twinkling brightly above Portland skies, promising endless possibilities yet also reminding me just how fragile everything truly felt right now. With dawn approaching rapidly, I knew soon enough decisions would need making, and standing there once again facing crossroads laid bare before heart yearning desperately for resolution, I braced myself against whatever might come next. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the Portland skyline, I found myself standing at a crossroads once again. The weight of my choices pressed heavily on my chest. My husband's heartfelt message lingered in my mind, "I still love you." It echoed through the silence of my thoughts like a haunting melody, reminding me of everything I had almost forgotten. The evening air was crisp as I walked through the familiar streets, my heart torn between two worlds. My neighbor, Jake, had become a sanctuary for me, a place where laughter and connection flourished amidst the chaos of my life. Yet, with every stolen moment spent with him, guilt clawed at my conscience. I had promised myself to be honest, yet here I was, entangled in a web of deceit. I reached Washington Park where the soft rustle of leaves whispered secrets only nature could understand. The serenity offered a brief respite from the turmoil swirling within me. Sitting on a bench overlooking the rose garden, I closed my eyes and inhaled deeply. The scent of blooming flowers filled my senses, grounding me momentarily. Just then, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was Jake. "Can we talk?" he texted simply. My heart raced. Part of me wanted to run to him, another part hesitated. What could we possibly say that hadn't already been said? But as I looked around at the vibrant colors of the roses swaying gently in the breeze, I felt an urge to escape, if only for a little while longer. "Sure," I typed back before quickly getting up and heading towards his apartment. With each step, anticipation mingled with anxiety. When I arrived at his door, he greeted me with that familiar warmth that made everything else fade away. "Hey," he said softly as he opened it wide enough for me to slip inside. "Hi," I replied, trying to mask the turmoil within me with a smile. We settled on his couch, and there was an electric tension in the air, an unspoken acknowledgement of our complicated situation. He handed me a mug of tea, its warmth seeped into my hands but did little to ease the chill in my heart. "I've been thinking about us," Jake began cautiously. "About what this means." I took a sip and felt it burn slightly down my throat, a stark contrast to how cold I felt inside. "Me too," I admitted quietly. He leaned closer, his eyes searching mine for answers that were hard to articulate. "I care about you more than you know." "But, what about your husband?" The mention of Mark's name sent ripples through me like stones tossed into still water. Suddenly, all those moments spent together felt tainted by guilt again, by loyalty to someone who had once meant everything to me. "I don't know anymore," I confessed honestly as tears threatened to spill over. Jake reached out and gently wiped away an escaping tear with his thumb, a gesture so tender it made my heart ache further. "You deserve happiness," he said softly. But did that happiness come at such a steep price? My mind raced back to Mark's message, the love that still lingered between us despite everything. Was it fair for me to explore this new connection while leaving behind someone who still cared? In that moment of vulnerability and desperation, I leaned in closer without thinking. Our lips met softly as if testing boundaries we both knew existed but were willing to ignore for just a heartbeat longer. The kiss deepened momentarily until reality crashed down like thunder after lightning. We pulled apart abruptly as if burned by fire rather than ignited by passion. "Sorry. I shouldn't have," Jake stammered as he turned away slightly embarrassed. "No, it's okay," I replied quickly but realized how wrong it felt even as those words left my mouth. The silence stretched between us thickly until Jake broke it again with hesitation laced through his voice. "What do you want?" That question hung heavily in the air like an uninvited guest refusing to leave, the very question that haunted every sleepless night since this affair began. What did I want? Did I want freedom from an unfulfilling marriage or something deeper? "I don't know if I can choose right now," I finally admitted after what felt like an eternity passed between us. He nodded slowly as if accepting defeat but not quite willing to give up entirely either. A flicker of hope still danced behind his eyes despite our reality's weight pressing down on us both heavily. As we sat there lost in thought once again, The world outside continued moving forward without pause or pity. I couldn't shake off Mark's message from earlier today, nor could ignore this burgeoning bond forming next door either. Hours later found me back home under dim lights illuminating our living room, where shadows danced against walls filled with memories accumulated over years shared together with Mark. A life built carefully, yet now feeling precarious at best amidst shifting sands beneath our feet. Mark walked into the room just then after finishing dinner preparations, a casual smile gracing his lips, but something flickered behind those eyes too. Apprehension perhaps? "Hey. How was your day?" he asked cheerfully enough, but there was an edge beneath those words, an awareness lingering unspoken between us both, hanging thickly in air surrounding us like fog rolling over Portland's streets late at night. "It was fine," I replied automatically, but couldn't help noticing how tense things felt despite our best efforts otherwise. Then came another text notification buzzing insistently against would surface nearby. Glancing over instinctively revealed another message from Jake. "We need to talk." Panic surged through me like ice water coursing through veins. I needed clarity now more than ever, but found myself caught between two hearts yearning desperately for something different, yet both claiming pieces already held close. Mark approached closer, now sensing something amiss perhaps, but before he could inquire further about what troubled mind occupied so much space tonight, the phone buzzed again, demanding attention. With shaking hands trembling slightly, I opened it, knowing full well what awaited beyond screen glowing brightly before me. "I still love you." Everything froze around us, time halted, and suddenly choices loomed larger than life itself, looming darkly overhead, casting shadows across paths once easily traversable, now fraught with uncertainty, threatening all I'd ever known. The words lingered in the air, heavy and charged. "I still love you." My husband's message echoed in my mind as I stood there, the vibrant sounds of the airport fading into a dull hum. My heart raced, caught between the warmth of familiarity and the thrill of the unknown. Beside me, my neighbor watched, his expression a mix of concern and confusion. "Amanda," he prompted softly, breaking through the fog that enveloped me. His presence had been a refuge from my mundane life, yet now it felt like an anchor dragging me down. I turned to him, searching his eyes for answers that I wasn't sure existed. "I don't know what to do," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. The weight of my choices pressed heavily on my chest. "Take your time," he replied gently. "But don't ignore what you want." His sincerity tugged at something deep within me. Yet, how could I even begin to articulate what I wanted? As if sensing my turmoil, he reached out and took my hand. The warmth of his touch sent a shiver down my spine, igniting memories of stolen moments and whispered secrets shared beneath the stars. But then came the stark reminder of my husband's message. The life I had built with him was still very much alive. "I need to think," I said abruptly, pulling my hand away as if burned. The last thing I wanted was to hurt either of them further. The airport buzzed around us, families reuniting with hugs and laughter, travelers rushing to catch their flights, but all I could feel was a void where clarity should have been. I turned away from him and walked toward a window overlooking the tarmac, watching planes take off into the vast blue sky. What did it mean to love two people? Was it possible to desire both safety and excitement? My thoughts spiraled as I replayed moments with both men in vivid detail, the quiet evenings spent with my husband discussing dreams long forgotten and the exhilarating rush that came with every encounter with my neighbor. Suddenly, a familiar voice cut through my reverie. "Amanda." It was my husband's voice, deep and steady yet tinged with an urgency that made me turn sharply. He stood just beyond security, scanning the crowd until our eyes locked. Relief washed over his face when he spotted me. It was as if he'd found an oasis in a desert after wandering aimlessly for too long. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to mask the tumult inside me with casualness that felt forced. "I came to surprise you," he said breathlessly as he approached. "I thought we could talk, really talk." My heart sank at his words, They felt like both a promise and a threat. The weight of his love pressed down on me like an anchor, tethering me back into familiar waters while simultaneously threatening to drown me in guilt. Now? I asked hesitantly. Right here? Yes, he insisted gently but firmly. I need you to understand how much you mean to me. A part of me wanted to run back into the arms of passion, of spontaneity, but another part craved stability, the comfort that came from years spent together building a life filled with memories. I can't just walk away from everything, I murmured, glancing back at my neighbor who stood watching from afar, a silent witness to this emotional storm brewing between us. Then let's not walk away, he urged softly but firmly. Let's work through this together. His eyes held sincerity that made it hard for me to breathe. Before I could respond, another message pinged on my phone, a notification from social media showing pictures from our recent neighborhood barbecue where laughter echoed under string lights illuminating our backyard, a stark reminder of what we had built together over time. A pang of nostalgia hit hard as images flashed before me, family dinners around our table filled with laughter, quiet moments spent curled up on the couch sharing dreams, lazy Sunday mornings sipping coffee while reading newspapers side by side. All those memories flooded back like waves crashing against rocky shores. But then there were also images of stolen kisses under moonlight, secret rendezvous filled with laughter and longing that made each heartbeat resonate louder than anything else in life ever had before him. Please don't make this harder than it needs to be, I said finally as tears threatened to spill over at any moment, a mix of frustration and heartbreak swirling inside me like a tempest ready to break free. Amanda, he stepped closer again but paused when he saw uncertainty flicker across my face. The hesitation mirrored in his own eyes told volumes about how fragile everything felt right now. I just need time. My voice trembled slightly as emotions bubbled up inside, a concoction so potent it felt almost suffocating. Time is what we have, he reassured quietly but firmly, his words wrapping around me like an embrace meant only for us amidst chaos surrounding us both now more than ever before. As if sensing this moment would change everything between us forever, my neighbor stepped forward, unexpectedly breaking through barriers once thought impenetrable. You deserve happiness too. His words hung heavily in the air, an unspoken truth lingering between us all three now gathered close enough yet feeling worlds apart at once. A crossroads forged by choices made without foresight or clarity clouding judgment altogether, leaving only uncertainty ahead looming larger than life itself, threatening everything familiar left behind. I can't choose right now. Panic surged within me as realization dawned. I stood at an intersection where every path seemed fraught with consequences beyond anything imaginable, leaving no room for second chances or easy resolutions left behind. Suddenly another ping broke through, the sound echoing ominously against silence surrounding us all three, caught within this moment, suspended in time, waiting for someone else's decision instead. And then came another revelation. My heart raced furiously as realization dawned anew. Choices must be made sooner rather than later because standing still would mean losing everything. As despair threatened once more, I turned toward both men standing there waiting patiently yet expectantly, and suddenly found myself torn between two lives, neither fully mine nor fully theirs. At last, feeling overwhelmed by emotions swirling wildly inside, I took one step backward, feeling lost amidst whirlwinds surrounding all three, caught within this moment, suspended forevermore, waiting anxiously, hoping, desperately praying for light amid shadows looming large overhead, casting doubt across paths once easily traversable, now fraught with uncertainty, threatening everything familiar left behind. And just like that, I faced an impossible decision at last.